Hello friends, Jenkins Dota here, bringing you another Dota 2 video on behalf of DotaAlchemy.com, and this video is going to be on 3 broken dual lanes that you can run in your pubs to win a lot of MMR right now. So without further ado, let's just get right into it. Combo number 1, Leshrac plus Ogre Magi. The main reason that this lane is so goddamn powerful right now is simply because Ogre has an extremely mana-efficient setup for Leshrac's incredibly mana-efficient, high-damage skill shot stun. You simply cast the Ogre stun, you press the Leshrac stun, boom, tons of damage, tons of lockdown, and a lot of kill threat. This lane is basically the new and upgraded version of Sand King Leshrac, which has been a classic for so many years. The combo is so simple. The enemy enters the lane, Ogre stuns, Leshrac follows up, you beat the shit out of them while they're stunned, rinse and repeat. Eventually, the enemy team will either die or they'll run out of regen, and in either case, they usually lose the lane. Ogre is extremely tanky, and Leshrac is very squishy. This is another reason that the lane is so strong. Ogre doesn't need items, and Leshrac scales amazingly with items. I have seen teams do the Ogre core because Ogre is so strong right now. I've seen teams do the Leshrac core. It really depends on player preference, but in general, Ogre makes a great meat shield for Leshrac to get some farm in the lane and to just not die. So Leshrac can get up some items, carry in the mid to late game. In this particular replay, we have 33 playing the core Ogre, which is another common version of this lane, but it really depends on the team and the player preference. Leshrac, being a very fast hero, also benefits greatly from Bloodlust, since it's a percentage-based movement speed increase, and Leshrac has a high base movement speed. As you can see in the replay, the combo is so easy to execute. So essentially, Leshrac will get more from Bloodlust than other heroes will, because if you increase the percentage of a larger number, of course, it's going to make the person faster. So this makes Leshrac much, much harder to kill, much better at chasing people down in team fights and in ganks, and that is something that Leshrac definitely struggles with. He struggles with mobility, but he's fast, and he wants to be faster. This is particularly good against sustain heroes like Bloodseeker or Spectre. This was one of the main things that I personally picked against Bloodseeker when that hero was really strong, just because you kill these regen tanky heroes before they regen at all. As you can see, like Terrorblade can't do anything against this dual lane. So that brings me to the second reason that this is a good combo, or what it's good against, which is essentially heroes that are very weak to magic damage. So Terrorblade is kind of in the same vein as Spectre or Bloodseeker in the sense that he has this high armor. Look at me, you can't harass me down in the lane because my armor is so high that the tangos give me such efficient regen that there's not a point really in harassing a Terrorblade. But with the magical damage that this combo does, there's absolutely a point. It completely destroys a Terrorblade, a Bloodseeker, or Spectre. This is particularly weak against, though, heroes that can ignore the Ogre and kill the Leshrac, because the Leshrac is the reason this combo is strong. You have the setup stun for the Leshrac, you have the tankiness, the frontliner for the Leshrac. The Leshrac really enables this combo to be what it is. So Weaver or Phantom Assassin are pretty good against this combo because you can just jump on the Leshrac and kill him. Although, if you play Leshrac plus Ogre right, they actually do enough damage to pretty effectively deal with these heroes. It's just not as much of a free lane. It's honestly a pretty skill-less lane. You just press both of the stuns, and then the person's going to take too much damage and die. But against these heroes, you actually have to be very careful with your positioning on the Leshrac, and Ogre needs to be a big bodyguard for him. Combo number 2, Trant plus Necrophos. This combo is basically designed to out-sustain the enemy team by overwhelming them with early damage and heal. Both heroes do an incredible amount of early damage because Necrophos' Q ability, that is the Death Pulse, simply has a super high damage value at level 1. Basically, since this hero got buffed that this spell is way better at level 1, he's been in the meta constantly. Tree also right-clicks extremely hard at level 1, and since he got buffed to have the highest base damage in the game, this hero has also been in the meta constantly. Necro is also a relatively squishy hero who loves it if there's some big bruiser soaking up damage in front of him in the lane so that he can get every single last hit and deny, since that's going to allow him to use the death pulse constantly to harass. So, because of these things, most heroes can't actually deal with the early pressure that comes out of these two heroes when they're paired together. The great thing is, though, Necro scales extremely well going into the laning phase. So you essentially get a bunch of items, you get a bunch of levels, and then he becomes impossible to kill through his Death Pulse plus Ghost Shroud ability. So if you get some early pressure because of high numbers at level 1, which obviously, because of the things we've talked about, is very, very easy to do with this combo, you usually snowball the lane as well. The great thing about that is, though, since you own early game and you scale into the laning stage very well, it sets you up for a great mid to late game. Conveniently, Necro is quite possibly within the top 10 beastliest heroes in the late game, simply because Reaper's Scythe is arguably one of the most broken abilities in the late game in Dota, simply because it does percentage-based damage and it increases the enemy's respawn timer. There's nothing else that does that in Dota other than buyback, and let me tell you, buying back is one of the most punishing things in Dota right now. So essentially, if you can run this combo and play it well, you can effectively win a lot of games of Dota because it's so good. Some tips for this combo are Necrophos ideally wants to use Death Pulse to get both a last hit or two if possible, and then also harass a hero or two if possible. And that way, when you use Death Pulse, you can get the mana cost back that you used to cast it because of the regen that you get from the last hit. But then you also get harass on the enemies while you're doing that. And Trant wants to heal on the wave, similar to how Necrophos wants to kind of heal on the wave, except for a bit of a different purpose. It's kind of so the lane pushes, and that way you'll have a creep number advantage. And if the enemies try to right-click you and trade with you, they'll get punished because they will have less creeps hitting you than you have hitting them. So basically, both of these heroes, because they have the heals, you get a lot of free harass on the enemy team, and you want to abuse that as much as possible. Like, the way you play this lane is to essentially slowly and methodically harass the enemy laners down with your high damage spells and your right clicks while healing yourself up at the same time, and then eventually they run out of regen, they get low, you kill them, or you get a completely free lane. They have that choice. They either leave the lane or they die. This is particularly good against melee carries because they have to walk up to the wave to last hit, and that is exactly when you can use your Death Pulse on them as a Necro and Tree can hit them. And then it's good against heroes that naturally Necrophos and Tree are good against, which is Strength heroes, because Necro is a natural Strength hero counter simply due to Heartstopper Aura being percentage-based and Reaper's Scythe being percentage-based, and then Strength heroes have a lot of HP, so you naturally just destroy these heroes. You basically have a free Radiance against them. And then Trant is pretty good against these mobile heroes or heroes that don't like to get kited because he has the root. And this is particularly weak against, it's still playable, but weak against burst and kill lanes. For instance, if you're dealing with like a Tiny plus Grimstroke, they could probably duke it out with these two heroes simply because the way that Trant Necro wants to win the lane is by slowly, methodically harassing down, and these heroes can just say, fuck that, I'm going to kill you. Like I said, you can still play it, but it's just a little bit harder. Combo number 3, Enigma plus some sort of roaming hero like Tiny or Tuskar. Enigma is in an extremely good spot right now, competitively speaking. He is essentially one of the only offlaners right now that you can leave totally on their own and not be punished for it at all, in the slightest. In fact, Enigma kind of prefers to get solo experience anyway, just based on how he plays. So if you pick an Enigma, it frees up the game to allow for heroes that would otherwise lose the game to be picked. Roamers, in particular, are amazing with Enigma. This is like the only offlaner that actually enables you to pick roamers, which makes it so broken. So, for instance, Tuskar, Earth Spirit, and Tiny are all great heroes because they love to roam mid, but then they also have an option to run to the Enigma's lane and do a lot of damage with the Eidolons if the lane is good. Like, it's great to essentially have options when you pick this hero, and this is why this hero is picked a lot. This is a great pick if you have a player on your team that is set on roaming in the game. In competitive, this is great to pick if a roaming hero is very strong in the game. For example, if you really want a Tiny in a game, if you really want a Tuskar because it's really good against one of their heroes, or if there's like a really gankable mid laner on the enemy team and you want to roam there, then you can pick an Enigma and you don't have to worry about losing that lane if you have somebody roam mid. And I know that it's not exactly a combo, but I feel that Enigma is so strong right now because of this fact that I needed to mention it in this video. Like, if you want to win MMR, you need to learn how to play this hero, at least if you want to play in the offlane. And to be completely frank, they have utterly overbuffed Enigma in the past few patches, between the Eidolons doing 100 damage per hit when you get some levels, and Midnight Pulse Black Hole being capable of solo killing any hero at any point in the game. This hero is ridiculous. So the way that you want to play the lane is you want to deny almost every single range creep that you can, and then you go jungle and have your support roam if the lane is hard. If the lane is easy, then you can use Eidolons in the lane to deny every single last hit from the enemy carry. This is very good against extremely hard lanes. Like, if you are looking at an enemy lane and you're like, oh god, I don't want to go lane against that, you can pick Enigma because he doesn't give a shit about what the lane is. He does the same thing every time. He just pulls the creeps into his tower by denying every single range creep on every wave. And if you draft Enigma into a lane that's supposed to apply a lot of pressure, you can really ruin the enemy team's draft, because a lot of the time they draft the whole game around that lane winning. This is also very good against gankable mid laners, like I said, like SF, because picking Enigma allows you to pick a roamer. This is very weak against, or relatively weak against, I should say, heroes that are really good at diving or pushing, kind of like Luna, because Enigma constantly pulls the wave back to his tower, which allows enemies to pretty easily access dives to you or push your tower. And if you're worried about this, this is something you need to make sure to do in games. Tell your 4-roll preemptively that the wave is coming to your tower and that you might be dove and they need to be there, or they need to have a TP ready. Like, for example, you can see in this replay, we have Tiny sitting with the Enigma. That way the Enigma can deny absolutely everything. He doesn't have to worry about getting dove. The way that you beat an Enigma is that you kill him. You punish him for doing what he's doing. So you need to make sure to communicate with your buddy if you're an Enigma and the lane is pushed into your tower. Well, that's it for this video, guys. If you can learn these dual lanes and draft them in pubs, I am absolutely sure that you will win a metric shitload of MMR. And yes, I said metric, not an imperial shitload, a metric shitload, because they're very, very strong heroes right now. Really, the biggest issue is just finding somebody that can confidently play the duo of the hero that you want them to play. Essentially, you want somebody to play Trant that knows how to play with Necrophos, or you just want somebody that's a good enough Trant player that you know that they can make it work. You don't want somebody that's just playing the hero because you're asking them to play it. And the way that I usually pick these dual lanes is that I suggest people to pick the heroes. Like, I'll use the alt click, but not aggressively in any way, because I want somebody that wants to play one of these heroes. And if somebody wants to play it and they may select it, and I see that they're hovering over that hero, then I'll select the dual lane and be like, okay, you want to do this? If nobody selects those heroes that I'm suggesting, then I won't push further, because like I said, you want somebody who actually understands how each of these heroes is played in order to have the lanes actually go well. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. I do genuinely appreciate it, and happy pubbing, guys.